Before we dive in, hit that like button and smash subscribe. It might just be a click for you, but for us, it really helps the channel. Thank you so much for being here and supporting us. In the heartfelt movie, Catherine, a mother of two, struggles with the tragic loss of her eldest son, Nicky, who died in a car accident years ago. She struggles with grief and her difficulty in moving forward with her life. She keeps Nicky's room untouched as a way to remember him and hopes her younger son, Brady, can live up to his brother's legacy. Overwhelmed by sorrow, Catherine distances herself from her husband and younger son, Brady. She doesn't allow Brady to enter his late brother Nicky's room, worried it will disrupt his things. Unaware to Catherine, Brady feels neglected and pressured by the expectations to live up to Nicky's memory. Catherine's husband, Dale, is also discontented due to Catherine's prolonged mourning and disregard for their relationship. When Brady and Dale are out for work and school, Catherine keeps herself busy with house chores and gardening. In the afternoon, Catherine phones Dale to remind him about a planned dinner, even though he's against it. Dale voices his annoyance with these dinners, but Catherine dismisses his worries. In another suburb, college professor and unsuccessful novelist Walt Braffer resides. He was the intoxicated driver involved in the car accident that claimed Nicky's life. Despite being found not guilty and facing no repercussions, Walt continues to bear the guilt years after the incident, leading to his alcoholism. While teaching his class, Walter finds himself approached by Sherry Banks, a young student who also works as a weather reporter. Sherry seeks Walter's assistance with the course material, but there is an underlying sense that she may have romantic feelings for him. Walt, in turn, quietly acknowledges and reciprocates these feelings. During dinner, Catherine declines to eat steak, leading to a disagreement with Dale. Dale is concerned about her recent lack of appetite, but Catherine insists she's merely trying to eliminate meat from her diet. Back at home, Dale assists a tipsy Catherine to bed. She asks Dale to remind Nicky about an event the next day. Dale disregards her request, advising her to rest. Later, Dale awakens to Catherine's sobs, but chooses not to comfort her and instead returns to sleep. Meanwhile, Geordie, who was driving with Nicky during the accident, sits alone in a basketball court. His guilt leads him to engage in frequent trouble, such as getting into fights with gangs and stealing. Currently, Geordie is serving a punishment for car theft in a youth detention center. After a few days, his sentence concludes and he is permitted to return home. Outside, Geordie encounters his father, Carl, who is waiting for him. However, their reunion quickly turns into an argument, as Carl has not yet forgiven Geordie for his role in the accident. This strained relationship between father and son creates dysfunction within their family dynamic. This also impacts Geordie's relationship with his stepmother. They find themselves at their lake house, having breakfast together along with Geordie's father and his stepmother Elise. Carl gives Geordie a one-week ultimatum to find a job, or else he will be kicked out of the house. After Carl leaves for work, Elise and Geordie are left alone in the house. Geordie has always harbored a tense relationship with Elise, treating her with open hostility and aggression. He believes that she is only with his father for financial reasons. Elise attempts to strike up a conversation with Geordie, but he chooses to leave instead of responding to her. Meanwhile, Walter stumbles upon a newspaper clipping of the accident while going through his bookshelf. The following day, he pays a visit to his younger brother, Dennis, who is autistic and was also involved in the accident. Unfortunately, Dennis has been unable to leave his house for the past 2 years, and his mental health has deteriorated as a result. Witnessing Dennis' condition, Walter arranges a meeting with Carl, who is not only Geordie's father, but also Dennis' psychiatrist. Walter seeks Carl's guidance on how to facilitate Dennis' recovery and improve his overall well-being. As Walt begins discussing the accident, Carl pieces together the puzzle and realizes that he was the intoxicated driver involved in the same incident that Nicky and his son Geordie experienced 2 years ago. Meanwhile, Catherine reluctantly gets out of bed to drive Brady to school after her husband, Dale, confronts her for not contributing to the household since Nicky's passing. After dropping off Brady, Catherine makes a stop at the location of the accident, where a cross stands beside a tree. She spreads out a blanket and enjoys a snack while observing the passing cars. Upon returning home, Catherine enters Nicky's room and finds herself overcome with tears as she gazes at his belongings. This is her way of coping whenever she feels the ache of missing Nicky. Meanwhile, Geordie goes to a pizza shop for a job interview but is initially rejected due to his past criminal history. However, he persists and manages to convince the manager to hire him after a conversation. When Geordie returns home, his stepmother, Elise, enters his room without permission, causing him to become angry and ask her to leave. Frustrated, Geordie decides to leave the house and goes to a nearby park. He sits on a bench and starts reading a book. While there, he encounters his high school friend, Melissa, who informs him that she recently saw Catherine, Nicky's mother, and suggests that Geordie should reconnect with her. After declining Melissa's offer to accompany him to meet Catherine, Geordie decides to go on his own. Meanwhile, at home, Walt is watching television where his student Sherry is reporting on the weather. Walt's wife, Abby, is also in the bedroom with him, but when she tries to get close to him, he rejects her and ignores her presence. Frustrated with Walt's behavior, Abby makes the decision to leave him and move in with her sister. Despite Walt's attempts to stop her, Abby remains firm in her decision, expressing that she has been unhappy for a while and that their marriage is no longer working. The next day, Walt unexpectedly crosses paths with Sherry at school and their connection takes a romantic turn. One day, Geordie walks past his father's bedroom and sees Elise, his stepmother, naked while brushing her hair. Surprised, Elise quickly covers herself and questions why Geordie is in their room. Without responding, Geordie slowly approaches Elise and they end up in bed together. Shortly after, they hear Carl, Geordie's father, arriving home, prompting Geordie to hide in the bathroom. Elise distracts Carl while Geordie quietly leaves the room. Geordie and Elise begin an affair, spending time together whenever Carl is away for work. A few days later, while working at a pizza shop, Geordie's high school friend Melissa visits and asks why he didn't attend a party she invited him to. Geordie makes an excuse, claiming that he had a lot of work that day. After Geordie receives a scolding from his manager for talking to a customer, Melissa decides to leave and tells Geordie that she will wait for him after his shift. Later that night, Melissa gives Geordie a ride home, and since it's getting late, Geordie invites her inside. Once they are inside the house, Geordie and Melissa have a conversation about Nikki, which brings up strong emotions for Geordie. Just as they are about to share a kiss, Elise enters the kitchen and catches them together. Elise questions Geordie about the girl's identity, and Melissa introduces herself as Geordie's high school friend. Elise leaves without introducing herself to Melissa, creating an uncomfortable atmosphere. Sensing the tension, Geordie asks Melissa to leave as well. At Dennis' house, Walt discovers that Dennis has been talking to a girl named Sylvie on the phone. Walt secretly contacts Sylvie and asks her to visit Dennis' apartment. When Sylvie arrives, Dennis, who hasn't interacted with anyone besides Walt for 2 years, tries to hide. However, Sylvie is already aware of Dennis' condition and decides to give him some privacy by leaving the room. She suggests that they pretend to talk on the phone while standing on opposite sides of the door, and Dennis agrees. As they engage in conversation, Walt observes his brother returning to a sense of normalcy after the accident. This sight brings immense relief to Walt as he realizes that there is still hope for Dennis. Dennis is getting better. Later, Sherry and Walt are in bed talking. Sherry reveals that she interviewed Walt after his car accident 2 years ago. This news upsets Walt, and he leaves without saying anything. Meanwhile, at the pizza place, Geordie is working when his manager tells him to work faster. Fed up with the manager's treatment, Geordie argues with him and decides to quit. He calls Melissa for a ride home, and she agrees. This situation makes someone feel jealous as they see Geordie spending more time with Melissa than with them. Elise becomes jealous and confronts Geordie about his actions, but he ignores her and leaves with Melissa. That night, Geordie finds himself unable to sleep and decides to reach out to Catherine. They make plans to meet the following day. Geordie and Catherine meet at a nearby beach and engage in a conversation about Nikki. During their discussion, it becomes clear that the car Geordie and Nikki were driving during the accident was stolen, leading to Geordie's time in jail. As they continue talking, both Geordie and Catherine open up about their respective guilt, allowing them to release the burden that has weighed heavily on their hearts for so long. Upon arriving home, Catherine gathers all of Nikki's belongings and decides to burn them. This symbolic act signifies her acceptance that she cannot alter the past or bring her son back. After 2 years of grieving, Catherine reaches a turning point and decides it is time to move forward. Shortly after, she seeks out her younger son, Brady, and apologizes for neglecting him during her period of mourning. Catherine expresses her intention to make amends by planning a vacation with Brady, aiming to make up for the lost time they spent apart. Brady forgives his mother and they share a heartfelt embrace. Meanwhile, Walt observes Dennis getting ready for a date after 2 years of isolation. Inspired by his brother's progress, Walt musters the courage to visit Catherine's house to apologize. However, Catherine is still hurt and resists Walt's apology, engaging in a heated confrontation. Catherine tearfully enters the car and leaves with Brady. When Geordie returns home, he attempts to talk to Elise but is interrupted by his father Carl, who discovers their affair and becomes violent. Geordie and Carl engage in a physical fight, resulting in Carl sustaining serious injuries. Elise quickly takes Carl to the hospital for medical attention. In the end, Dennis enjoys a dinner with Sylvie at a restaurant, while Catherine is seen driving with a smile on her face, finally finding happiness after years of grief. Geordie decides to leave town with Melissa, seeking a fresh start. Meanwhile, Walt sits alone in a restaurant, contemplating his own journey. Don't forget to give that subscribe button a big high five and turn on the notification bell. Thank you for watching.
For more videos like this, please subscribe, turn on notifications and leave a comment or like. It really helps the channel. Thank you for watching.